Welcome to the Vision Dev podcast, where entrepreneurs, innovators, and creators come to us to not only share their stories, but also their mindset, the strategies, and the tools behind their great accomplishments. Hi, my name is Leo Burnett. I'm Vision Dev's co-founder, a private equity real estate company. And on the road to building a $100 million portfolio, I interview guests that are high achievers or interesting characters to understand better about their journey, but mostly the tricks and mindset they've developed to get where they are. On today's episode, we get Sebastiano Cantali, a professional real estate investor, come to tell us about his entrepreneurial journey. We'll learn about how constantly seeking new information and getting over his fear of failing, he managed to successfully start multiple businesses, notably a large tutoring organization, an international short-term hospitality network, or a real estate portfolio. Seb is a good friend, an inspiration to me and to many others, and one of the most generous people I know. You'll not want to miss this fascinating conversation. Sebastiano, thanks for being here today.
What's happening, Leo? You
Yeah,
doing good?
I'm excited. Yeah. You had a very diverse path in your entrepreneurial journey up till now. And I'd like you to start with your first project, which was tutoring, right?
Yeah, tutoring was my first legitimate business, I'll say. Yeah, so we've all like cut grass for other people's lawns and make a few
That's
bucks.
what you mean by illegitimate.
Legitimate business, like put up tempos. I've done all the little things to make a little bit of money.
Okay, so then start from the first one.
Oh,
I'd be curious.
No, it was just like
When's the first time you went out to make money? And
I started my first, let's say, like, I guess it started from allowances. Like my parents were paying me allowances when I was young, like 10, 12 years old. Started doing like lawn care and all that stuff. And then started asking neighbors to just like cut some grass here and there. But not like maybe two neighbors. I would charge like $25, just cut the grass.
Okay.
So I made a few little dollars there. And that's when I got excited about like money and how to basically, my father gave me that idea of making your own money when I was young, 10 years old. He said I could either pay for $300 for your birthday party, or I could give you this $300 and you could buy a toy that you want or whatever it is. And then it started with the saving, and then if I save, I could buy a bigger toy, or I can eventually buy my first car at 16, and led to all these things. So money was always one of those things for me. It was kind of an enjoyment because I just enjoyed the savings part of it. But I started cutting grass. I was putting up tempos for my grandparents, for their neighbors, my parents' neighbors. But then in high school, end of high school, I started tutoring mathematics. High school math, I was very good in high school in math. So it was a no-brainer to be able to try and make some money off of it. I realized there's a lot of people that struggle with this. So when I got into college, I had maybe my first 2 students charging $25 an hour. And then word of mouth spread, and I must have ended that year with like 10 students charging $25 an hour. And
what
then,
word of mouth? Like
so
you were like a good tutor, or
the
the
one
grades
client-
were getting good?
grades were doing, the student was seeing progression. The parents loved me. They saw that I was very respectful, responsible. The kids related to me. Trying to explain to people that not everyone understands the same way, right? Like you can't just explain something one way and that every other person is going to understand it. It's trying to really dissect it and explain it to someone in the terminology and in the way that they'll relate most to the material. So I was really good at that. And the first client I had, the parent was a politician. So a lot of people in the community knew of the person, and she did like to chat with a lot of people. So my name was passed around for, oh, do you have a tutor? Oh yeah, my son's using this so-and-so. And I was starting to get phone calls. And at the time I had a friend who was also doing the same thing. And I've been exposed to the tutoring world because I've done like a final exam prep for secondary 4 at the time with a bigger company locally. And then we eventually started our own, my friend and I, we said, well, let's merge together. We'll bring in some people who want to become tutors but don't know where to start or how to find their first client, and we'll take a cut on their head. So we were already doing our own, let's say, one-on-one sessions for $35 an hour. After a year, we were doing about, I would say, 20 students a week each. And yeah, so, and it was great money at the time because minimum wage was like $10 an hour when we were working part-time. So we were making like some good money at that point. So we said, okay, how can we expand this? Some people want to get into tutoring, so we started hiring people and taking, let's say, a 25% cut on their head. And then we got the ability to buy the bigger business that was there. So Building Blocks Tutorials was the original tutoring school or company in, I would say, the East End of Montreal. They were doing really well. They were also focused on college crash courses at the time. So Dawson was very, very popular. But then colleges started to crack down on the campus rentals for these crash courses. They started realizing they're making a lot of money. So they had their high school business, and the college business was kind of fading away. And the two owners at the time were finishing their bachelor degrees or their university degrees, and they were going into their own careers. So they were looking to just offset the business. So my partner and I came in, not knowing enough about business and just kind of figuring it out. And we bought an existing business, but we didn't know how to evaluate the business. So we paid a bit of a premium at the time for it, but it ended up paying itself tenfold. I worked on it for 3 to 4 years, got midterm and final exam prep contracts with the EMSB, so English Montreal School Board. We got it also with some private schools.
What kind of contracts were you getting?
So we were getting contracts. So this was amazing contracts. We were advertising in the school, basically sending flyers or emails to parents because they have the list. So
Okay, so you were getting a license to market.
well, it's not even a license to market. So we went and pitched the principal or the school board, because the EMSB was the school board, and each school had, so the English Montreal School Board is public. They had, let's say, a percentage that they could allocate to students additional education, like after hours and everything. So what we want to do is we said, well, we have a great curriculum that we can offer to just for your students in your classrooms, where we market on a weekend. We come here, you open up the doors, we take, let's say, a classroom for math, a classroom for history, a classroom for science, put in 30 students, we get a teacher, and we go through final exam or midterm exam preps, and like question by question, past exams. And it was a great way because, like, everyone's done high school math and all these exams. The more practice exams you do, the more you see the patterns.
Yeah.
So we were just trying to show the different intricacies of how to solve certain problems or what to expect. And we started getting contracts. So we were getting the classrooms for free, and we were charging $120 a kid a head. Yeah. And we were paying our teachers about $50 an hour. So the teachers were happy because they were coming in as tutors and making pretty good salaries.
Mm-hmm.
Some were even paying like $75, depending on their experiences and their strengths. And we were getting contracts at all these schools. Like we had Vincent Massey Collegiate, which is my own high school. We went to Lester B. Pearson, Laurie McDonald. We went to a few private schools too. And we were getting contracts after contracts after contracts, and midterm and final exams were our biggest parts of the years. And we would still do our one-on-ones throughout, but the lucrative parts, the cash cows, were mid and final exams.
Yeah.
So we did that. I basically took over the business. We only had one
It's
contract.
huge business. Like
Huge business.
I remember being in university.
University
There were
even
multiple
more expensive.
competitors.
Oh yeah, SOS,
Yeah.
Great Savers. I remember them all. I remember them all from Concordia. So they were charging premiums, right? Because it's bigger.
Charging so much.
So much.
And it was worth it.
Oh yeah.
That's what's crazy
Well, that's
about
it. It's like you. I remember skipping a lot of my classes in university and like just go to the prep, and I would pass my exam. So it was exactly that we were bringing to a high school level. A bit harder because at a university level, it's kind of us that want to get through the class. And at high school, it's kind of the parents wanting the kids to get through the class. And then some of the schools will even subsidize that $120. So there was a lot of pros and cons, but we had almost no fixed costs or overhead, because if we got the contract, that's when the costs would come in, and we would just like print packages, pay the teacher for the hours that they did, and then get a classroom. But we knew that we would do a class that had less than 10 students in it, and we would just have think about it, every level, 3 to 4 subjects per level, and 5 to 10 schools. So we were doing well. So by the third year, we got a lot of contracts. I was doing well. I already bought my first building at the time.
with that money?
With prior money from just part-time working and throughout school. I bought one building with one of my partners. And then I was excited about real estate more and more. So I said, you know what? My partners and I kind of had different perspectives on the business and how we want to grow it. So we were 3 at the time. So I sold my shares back to the original owner, actually. He was still 25% into the company, and then he bought back my shares because he saw how well it was doing. And then he ended up buying my friend's shares out too. So he now owns 100% of the business again.
Still exists today?
Still exists today, and he's doing extremely well. He just got into the French market now. He's doing extremely well. I'm happy for him.
And why did you sell?
So I just sold because we were having some difference of opinions on how we want to grow the business.
Okay.
And I realized that I also was really starting to enjoy the real estate aspect. So when I sold that business, I took the funds that I made off of the tutoring company, and I basically just sunk it into another down payment on a 5 unit in Mirabel. So it felt perfect, but I just saw a new venture start, and like I want to get more into real estate. So I said, let's acquire another property. So I took the funds from there, bought another property, and then started another business with one of my friends that I was explaining before. He's in the e-commerce space. He does a lot of digital marketing. We started a refurbished appliance business, so kind of like an online catalog. It was called 22kg, which stood for the amount of waste per year that appliances go to landfills. So it was a lot of like, not per year, sorry, per week. I think that's what it was.
Per person.
Per person, yeah.
22 kilos a week.
A week, yeah. So
that's
that's
like the
of
Canadian average.
The Canadian average that like go to landfills. So that was the
There's no recycling. There's lots of
even
metal.
Even recycling, like there's still a lot of it that still isn't recyclable, or like example,
lots of plastic.
Fridges are full of foam inside.
Yeah.
Foam is not recyclable unless you go to a specific company where they charge you for it. So majority of the time it's just thrown away. So we realized there was a great market for this. And we just had to catalog and kind of do a proper landing page or catalog online where there was proper photos of the defects of, let's say, the appliance that you can see. Kind of like going to a used appliance store here in Montreal where you walk in and you see all the things that you would like, I'm not sure if I like this dent or this isn't working properly. It's a bit too noisy. We would do all these descriptions and pictures, proper photos so people can see what they're buying.
So I guess these large refurbished or used appliance stores didn't exist. There
was a lot. Like the biggest competitor is I think Economax here in Montreal, but they're not cataloged online. So you have to show up in person. So they had a lot of fixed expenses in the sense of always renting new locales and having multiple locales because they have to have one in the east, one in the west, one in the north. So we kind of saw that there was a huge market online and presence that no one was taking advantage of. So we did it for a year. I had two bigger partners who had bigger businesses. One was in the digital marketing space. He was taking care of all of our advertising.
So I'm curious to learn more about how you came up with this business plan, or how did you find this niche?
So I was actually brought on kind of to be the operational manager.
So somebody else had the vision.
So someone else had the vision. My friend who was taking care of the marketing was pitched by this other friend. So I don't know if you know the company LXR. There's a company LXR on Saint Laurent. They used to sell used handbags, high-end handbags. So like Louis Vuitton, all the big brands. He would, because there was a huge market in the used handbags that they still gained value or kept value.
Yeah.
So this gentleman, Fred is his name. He actually started that business, went public with that business, sold his company, did extremely well for himself. And then he was kind of getting bored because he was like, I think 35 at the time. And he's like, he's got kids. And he's very big on entrepreneurship. So he's like, saw this idea and he wanted to run with it. So he spoke to my friend Yan, who's the marketing guy. And Yan brought me in. He says, well, you'd be great for operational guy. I said, okay, perfect. Came and listened to the pitch. Understood it, and I said, "Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do it." And I had some extra time because I was in and out of a few jobs on 9 to 5s while still doing real estate. I said, "You know what? Let me try it. Let me see what it's all about." And we did extremely well the first year. We hit about like $1 million in revenue in the first year.
Crazy.
But there was a lot of like operational headaches. Staffing, it was crazy, annoying. Logistics,
staffing for refurbishing.
So that's it for let's say the techs in the back, like fixing up the appliances. There's also a lot of liability in the sense of like a lot of parts break, warranty, picking up. Logistics was one of our biggest problems. Having our own delivery guys, we didn't third party outsource it. There was a lot a lot of hurdles, and we were still doing well, but it was going to be like a 5-year play for it to start being profitable. And the two other partners already had other businesses that they were doing on the side and doing well, and they weren't ready to sink that much time and effort into it to, let's say, like carry it forward for another 5 to 7 years. So we decided to say, like, you know what, let's just close it, we'll part ways. And that's when I kind of like walked away from that scene. I said, I need to stick to something. And I said, the thing I'm most passionate about is real estate. So I said, you know what, let's sink some education into it, because before that it was all self-taught. So we joined the CIIQ. We met Jean-Philippe Claude, great guy, one of my first mentors, love him to death. Doing some big things here in Quebec, which is super, super cool. And then just started joining a bunch of communities, the US side, learning from short-term rental space, learning from multifamily, learning from anything and anyone I could learn about real estate. So that's pretty much what I was focused on at that point.
Nice. And you've done very well for yourself in real estate so far.
I'd like to think so.
Upwards of 30 units.
Yeah.
And, I know you're thrifty. You're very good at managing your money. You know how it doesn't slip through your hands, and you know where to put it so that it grows.
Of course.
And you've started very early. So maybe go back to the start with real estate. Like, how did it happen? Like, how did you do your first move? Is this something that was already being done in your family or in your circle, or you were the first one? Like, how did it happen?
So my parents didn't want to know anything with real estate. They only bought their home. They acquired one home in their life, and that's it. So it's the only asset they have. I've had uncles who own a few, like a fourplex and so on and so forth, but nothing to the point of scale. I kind of got exposed to the real estate world when I was working at the bank. I was a financial service representative, and I used to work at Square Victoria in the Old Port.
Okay, so through all your businesses, you still had a full-time job.
There was parts where I was either full-time at like 22 kg, I was full-time. But when I was doing the tutoring, I did a lot of full-time work while still doing that part-time on the side. And that's the tutoring and the bank kind of like overlapped. So the bank was one of those parts where I met a lot of wealthy individuals who were in real estate, right? Where I saw the first of the month would come and people would be depositing like lump sums of money, right? So that's when I was kind of exposed to the growth of real estate, or like the portfolio side. So I was always interested in real estate since I was 18. Took a few courses in John Olson. We took the entry-level real estate courses and the advanced real estate courses, but I wouldn't say it was enough to really like understand how to go about it and make it into an actual legitimate business. So when we were looking at our first deal when I graduated university, all I knew was cash flow. So it's like money in, money out, and that's all I knew. So I didn't know the business side of it and the loans side of it and the financing that can really drive the business. So it was just understanding specific things, and I'm the type of person that's just I'm naive on things. Like I'm gonna figure the answer out later, and I'll just get started. So I don't want to get caught. Like the first deal, I think I must have analyzed over 800 properties before I made like 3 offers.
That's a serious amount of reps.
it's one of those that like I'm like, no, I just gotta put in the offer at this point.
So what were you like excited about? What were you attracted to? And I'm sure money plays in it, but tell me more about how you felt about it.
It was more of I think it was like a small business that was kind of manageable to learn every aspect of a business in a sense. Like to just clarify, it's like
it's approachable.
It's approachable. It's easy to get in. Almost anyone can do it. It's not rocket science. You can get financing. You can have very little money to start if you want, and you get to understand every aspect of it. You get to understand the client. You get to understand how money gets in, what are your expenses, how do you have to manage these things.
So you get to be your own boss.
But
that's the case with any business you start.
Of course, but with this, I got to see other aspects of it where I couldn't necessarily see if I like my tutoring business, right? I can't go and try and get a loan for my tutoring business. The bank won't say, hey, yeah, you're approved for X amount. No, there was a lot of cash in that business. There was a lot of things that the bank doesn't necessarily see as a value. So there's a lot of things that you can learn from real estate that you can't learn from other things without having to either put a lot of money or time or effort, and you might not even get to that point where you get to see the whole business.
So you like that it's leverageable,
Scalable,
scalable.
ease of entry. There's something about the I guess as a kid we all play Monopoly, right? So it's owning the board, right? So it's not that I want to own the city, but I'm like, I love architecture. I love driving around and looking at buildings. Like I'm one of those people that kind of like.
So you like the physical aspect of it.
Physical aspect. I always wanted to get into architecture, and I eventually wanted to start designing and building my own buildings. I actually was about to at one point. I was in pure and applied sciences in college, and I was thinking of going that route. But finally, I said, you know what? I don't know if I want to be drawing and always like behind the desk.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
you're too much of an entrepreneur for that.
I'm like,
It's like too much of a big urge for you to.
Exactly. Well, like majority of engineers actually get into the entrepreneur world, or like Jean-Philippe Claude was an engineer before. So a lot of these guys start to realize it's like, is this what I wanted to do? Is just be behind the desk and do the plans or the drawings and I'm like, no. So I realized that early, and I said, no, I want to have different things happen. So that's why, to me, it was a mixture of Monopoly, architectural passion, and everything combined. And it was like the perfect mix for me. So that's kind of what led me to real estate. And then once I realized that, because I've always been the type of person to kind of live below my means. So I realized that this was another way to help me get to the point where I can, let's say, have that lifestyle that I want, where it's not necessarily having the fancy cars or anything. It's more of have my time of freedom to do what I want and when I want. So that's kind of what I saw as an avenue to just open up my time. And that's what it was. So that was my passion to start real estate, I would say.
So you touched on so financial freedom, but freedom of your time.
Time more than financial.
Yeah.
I can be making $50K a year, but if I can go grab a coffee in the middle of the day with a friend that I haven't seen in a while, you can't put a dollar amount on that for me. So
when you so you were about to graduate from university when you made your first move.
Yep.
You've had this calling, this epiphany, I guess, like this vision at this point. You wanted to get into this, and you got it. You just jumped in. Like, what was your vision of what it would be like to be a real estate investor or do a first move? Like, can you remember?
Oof. I think
I guess it was an optimistic view.
It was definitely an optimistic view. I don't think it was what we expected. We kind of got lucky on our first building, actually. Like, there was very little
so
maintenance.
you're talking at the we. So from the get-go, you were planning on doing this with someone.
Yeah. So, okay. I was planning on doing it for myself originally. I was 18 and I wanted to start investing, and I realized that I didn't have money, or maybe it wasn't the right time. My father kind of like made me understand, like, you have to take care of these things. It's not something where you can just buy it and forget it. And I'm like, young naive kid, it's like, what does my father know? Even though he's got years of experience over me, even though he hasn't bought a building, but he always came back to, I've had friends who own buildings, I've heard of the horror stories, and that's why he's never got involved in real estate. But
it's a story we hear a lot.
It's always the story, right?
Yeah.
No one's ever going to tell you how much money they've made and just gloat about it, right? Like we've discussed, it's not one. People are not going to just start showcasing these things. So it's always the horror stories we hear of, or how people lost money. So at 18, I wanted to buy my first few buildings. Didn't have the funds for it at the time. So I saved up to about 25 when I bought my first one with a partner. My partner was a good family friend. Like we met in college. Not family friend, met in college, but we've known each other for years before. And he wanted to get into real estate. I wanted to get into real estate. So we said, perfect match. He was really good in finance as well. So we really kind of balanced each other out, because I'm kind of go, and he's kind of, well, let's reevaluate certain things. So we kind of just...
It's a good match.
It was a great match. And it was also just a great way to split the risk, right? So not knowing what I'm getting myself into, expecting X, but maybe it wasn't going to be the case. So it was just a great way to, and we saw kind of scalability, right? So if we put both half down payment right now, then we could do another half down payment on another building. And now we're no longer at 3 to 6 units. We might be at 12 units. So we saw the progression that way. At the time, it was always just constantly investing my own money because I didn't know anything prior to that. So we bought our first building with our own down payment. Just remember it like it was yesterday. It was $515K. Built a sixplex on P9.
Sixplex?
Yeah.
515?
Yeah. I bought it when it was like 2016.
Notre époque, hein?
Yeah. All 3.5s, fully rented. Bought it for $515K. I negotiated down. The guy listed it at $545, and I negotiated down.
So you said you've analyzed 800 properties
At that time, yeah.
to get there.
To make that was our second or third offer at the time, yeah. And we had a realtor that I met because I was tutoring his son, and I always told him I wanted to get into real estate. And he says, "Well, when you're ready, come." And I knew that he owned property, so he kind of also guided me on certain calculations. So I got his perspective too. Like we all say, right? It's more who you know and who can help you out. So it was good that I had him to ask some questions to. So he was our agent at the time who helped us buy our first property. Luciano Messina, we'll give him a nice little shout out. He did really well for us. So if you have any questions, he's still in the game. So it's for
Luciano
Messina. Yeah. So he helped us out by our first one and then helped us out by our second one a year later. But we bought our first one. We didn't know what we were doing. We did some calculations on a 25-year amortization.
25-year amort.
We didn't know we could do 30 at the time. I spoke to RBC because I knew RBC you could do a residential loan on a 6-unit. So we were putting 20% down at the time. So I didn't know about the commercial loans yet and how it worked.
But you did come from the banking
industry,
world, but
so I knew a bit about like how the commercial loans would work, but I didn't know the full extent of how it would work. And most of the time in the banking industry, from the branch aspect, the financial service representatives don't necessarily take care of commercial loans. It's mostly the residential loans they take care of, right?
Yep.
So
it's very
I wasn't
separated.
exposed to it fully. So when we bought the first one, we bought it on a residential loan. Then our loan officer at the time told us you could do a third year, and it just like made the returns even better. We're like, wow, look at that. We're even making better return. And we're like happy with a 10% cash on cash return at the time. And that's all we knew. So like, okay, with time, people move. And I had already a construction background. I'm very manual. So I said, when they move, we'll upgrade the units and we'll rent them for hire. They're all renting for $500 at the time. And I still have tenants that are still renting at $500 at this time. But it was the first one. We were excited. We didn't tell anyone about it. I remember it was, we just did the walkthrough and we did the inspection, and it was the final day for us to walk away from the deal with like not having to worry. And we met up at Square Victoria because my friend didn't work far. It was on lunch break. We were seeing people doing yoga in the park, and we were freaking out. Like, do we go forward with this? It's $50K each. It's like all our money. Like, what happens if? And he said, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just do it, and we'll figure it out. If we have to sell, we sell. But I said that if we'll never know if we don't try. So we basically moved forward with it. It was the best decision we ever made. So
it's very hard to do, like, to make a call like that when you don't have the support of the people close to you. Like, so at this point, you know, you've mentioned like your father was telling you horror stories, like why he never made these moves because, like, you know, to him it was like a bad call, and it was like buying yourself a big job that won't pay enough for the work.
Exactly.
And so at this point, like, who had your back? Like, did you have mentors, or did you have people that were supporting you or telling you like it is a good idea, or you were like totally by yourself? And your partner.
Clarify, my parents weren't completely against it, but they're just risk adverse, right? So they're like, oh, well, it's gonna make X return, and they're just talking from a point where it's gotta really make sense. Like, not 10%, it's gonna be like 20%. I'm like, that doesn't exist right now, you know. So It wasn't that like my father always had my back, my parents always had my back. Just they don't like debt. They're debt free. They've been debt free for a long time. So here I was going to get a $400,000 mortgage when they paid their house 120,000. It's kind of scary for them. And I was just starting my career, and they were helping me out with the first down payment, giving me like a small loan, like 20K, like just to say like, hey, I had 30, like I'll fork over the rest and you just pay us back over time.
Okay, so they did support you.
They did support me. I'm fully honest. Just they were very risk adverse, and at the time we weren't telling people that we were looking for property. We were actually just like analyzing, keeping hush hush. No one knew we were looking at property. No one knew we were buying apart from our agent and my friend who was my partner.
And why were you keeping this quiet?
It was just one of those that like there's two angels, I guess, weighing on your shoulders. Like you don't want to be the laughing stock if you do make a mistake, and you also don't want to be the person that like everyone's running to when you do succeed, right? It was one of those mentalities that we were raised with, where you don't talk about money.
So it wasn't a question of not wanting to jinx your project.
No, at the time we weren't thinking that way. No. At the time, I didn't make enough offers to say like we lost too many. At this point, we made 2 offers. They fell through because it just numbers didn't add up. And then the third one got accepted, and we went the whole way. So I wasn't at that point where like you've experienced and I've experienced now, where we've made like 20 offers and things keep coming back, and we have to walk away from the deals or we have to spend money. So we weren't at that point, luckily, and we weren't trying to say we're going to jinx it. So we were kind of still like very hopeful that everything was going to go through. So it was more of the fact of like we didn't want to tell everyone what we were doing because we didn't want other people or other opinions as well to come and get involved. Interfere. So we just kept the hush hush. We bought the first one, kind of figure it out as we go.
So you went to the notary and you've like
signed, happy, got some keys, and introduced ourselves as the landlords to all the tenants, which was the biggest mistake at first. But yeah, we're the landlords, and imagine being there and we're 25.
Why was it a mistake?
Well, you want to be a 25-year-old introducing yourself to a 50-year-old who's your tenant? Sometimes
what happened?
Some people the look of shock, like, wait, you guys are the owners. How you guys own this building? How did this happen? So luckily we really showed good faith to the tenants. We showed them that we were there for them. If there was any questions or concerns or problems with the building, we were responsive right away. And we made sure that it was a balance, that there wasn't don't abuse us. But if there is something, we would take care of the cleaning once a week at the building, to make sure the place was clean. Make sure the lawn was cut. We really made sure that like we took care of it. It was like our baby at the time, you know. And I'm still, I think, a bit too attached to that building because I still have it. But it was a blessing in disguise, and we were just happy to just be landlords and have our first building. And we did it great the first year.
And I know I'm dragging this period of your life quite a bit but
I
to
have
me,
a funny
like,
story to that. That's why it's good that you're dragging.
Well,
on.
I'll be happy to hear it. And to me, this period of your real estate career is the most important one.
Yeah.
Like these are the first steps. These are the scariest steps. After that, everything like happens more naturally, I think.
Yeah.
But this one is like what makes the difference. Like it's the 0 to 1. So I'm curious to see how it happened, because I'm sure a lot of people will not go through this because they're afraid, and perhaps like it can inspire a few into action. So how did it, like, lots of people like carry this imposter syndrome, and I've been guilty of that, and I still do. How did you go over, I'm sure you've been through that, right? Like, how did you deal with being like a young boss or a young landlord, like in your previous businesses as well? I'm sure you've had people like, you know, clients or employees or, you know, tenants that were older than you, much older than you. And have you, like, how did you figure that one out?
I think the fact that I had the tutoring business before I bought the first building and becoming a landlord at the time, kind of like ease of entry for me for that. It was like a simple role transition. It was kind of I already have employees. I already was managing. I was already taking meetings with older people, like principals and my old principals, and showing that I was professional, even though I was 20, 25 years old at the time. So when I was coming to becoming a landlord, like, we got those looks like, you're so young. But I always made sure that I was very professional, that we are legitimate. This isn't just like, hey, we'll fall apart in a couple of years. No, we made sure that we took care of the tenants, we took care of the building, we turned it into a proper business. It wasn't ever the case where I'm like, I'm just gonna walk away or forget about this thing eventually. And it was the same for all my other businesses because I guess I was so passionate by entrepreneurship. I never really felt enough of the imposter syndrome. It was more of I guess the risk and fear of what I don't know when entering new things. And I still get that today, like you said. We just recently started acquiring in the US. It's not any easier, even though it's still buying the same style asset. I'm still doing the same steps, but it's now it's a foreign market. So it's one of those things where you learn to deal with it. And I've realized in my life when I'm too comfortable is when I need to seek change. So when my biggest and best decisions have come from when I'm really uncomfortable. So I've learned to either accept it or live with it. So until I get comfortable, and then I seek the next thing.
So live with it. Just like accept the feelings and just go through it.
So 99% of the thoughts that you think are like the worst possible things that could happen don't ever happen. So at that point, it was hard to, and again, in the situation, you're telling yourself this, but your mind is running at a mile a minute, just thinking about all the problems you could possibly have. And you're just telling yourself, like, this won't happen, or you have other people, like my parents, also saying, like, what happens if the tenants leave? What happens if this? But I just realized that I'm the type of person that I always kind of go into it naive. Like I said, I think that's one of my best traits is realizing that I'm going to figure it out later on. And to me, there's always a solution. No matter how bad it gets, there's always a solution. So I'll figure something out, or if I have to pivot, I have to pivot, or I have to take a step back, Not everything's a straight line. There's always ups and downs. And once I've accepted that, I realized that if other people can do it, I can too. So, like, we've all went to high school. We all grew up in Quebec. Like, you're doing great things. I can do great things. So why does it have to be limited to certain people? I think anyone can do it. It's just, are you willing to risk it for it? So some of my friends took the 9 to 5 and are doing extremely well for themselves, and they're taking 3 to 4 vacations a year. I'm not taking 3-4 vacations a year. I'm sacrificing now to potentially take 3 to 4 months of vacation next year and a couple of years after. So it's just, how much are you willing to sacrifice and how much shit are you willing to take? So I've realized that my tolerance for crap early is okay. I'm young. I can tolerate it for now. So I'm okay with to get down and dirty and do the things that most people don't want to do right now. And I accepted it.
So you do have all these negative experiences. It's just that you have a vision or purpose, like something on the other side that you know is going to happen, that you trust is going to happen if you just stay there. And
naivety is just like thinking about like something's there. It's like it's there in the future. It's just, when will I reach it? I don't know.
I don't think it's naive. I think every predictions we're making are naive, whether whether they are positive or negative, and we actually get to choose what we want to believe.
Of course,
because everything is a belief, anyways.
Exactly.
Things are going to go bad, it's a belief.
Yeah.
Things are going to go well, it's a belief. So might as well choose the one that pulls you through, right?
But what I mean by being naive is like I try to focus only on the good. Like, I think that no bad will come, even though it's going to happen, right? There's going to be hurdles you're going to encounter, like in any business. So it's just kind of shutting off my mind at that point in time that this is for the better and not for the worse. So that's
focusing on the positive outcomes.
Exactly.
And so there's must have been hurdles.
Oh yeah.
Anyone in particular, like one of your best failures or your best problem you've solved, or with this first property or any other
first property, there weren't that many hurdles. Like, we got lucky in the first property, I'm not gonna lie. The second property we bought a year later was one of those where we had some tenants who weren't paying, and we had to kind of turn over a lot of tenants and do some renovations right away when we bought the building. So those were some little hurdles where cash flow was a bit tight. Like we have 3 units that were empty. We were renovating two units at a time out of three. We finally got one rented, and then we got water damage. Like there was that building was kind of problematic. But even today, like we just did an optimization on a 6 unit in South Shore. The building is brand new plumbing, new electrical, new everything. The condo luxury look, and we rented it. And second day, a tenant came in, water damage in one of our apartments. Now we're having a rat problem. Like this building is brand new, and I'm having more issues on this building than I have on all my other older buildings that aren't touched. So there's headaches in every aspect, and also like just the way I scaled the business and investing always my own money in all my deals, apart from the most recent ones. But I've always been the majority owner in the deals and invested my own money into my deals. Now I'm starting to get to the OPM, other people's money, or creating the proper business around it. Just not also thinking about it the right way. I think for myself, some of the things I've learned is maybe creating a business within real estate or working alongside people like yourselves, you and Cedric, that are creating a proper portfolio, a big company, and learning from some of these people could have maybe scaled me in a different way or route at this point. So making some mistakes that I kind of had to take a lot of step backs in a sense of like I should have made a property management company at first to manage my property, so it would have been at least a bit of active income coming in instead of just waiting on cash flow on a portfolio, because like we all know, it's not always the case. There's a lot of maintenance sometimes, a lot of problems, a lot of turnover sometimes. So it's just creating more of the active side and creating a proper business that now I had to take a step back, and we're starting to do those things. We just recently created with my girlfriend and my brother-in-law, we started a short-term rental management company where we do co-hosting, arbitrage, just basically low form of entries to get in, but there's active income coming in.
So before we get into that, because we're definitely going to get into that, you bought a first property, then you bought a second one.
Yeah.
You said you split your down payment for the first month, so you got to buy another one, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
After that, I guess, like typically properties like that don't necessarily cash flow enough in the first years so that you can put money aside to buy a third one, or you have to wait till some those property appreciate. You can get some money out, but this would require you to be patient, and you wanted to evolve in real estate and get to next steps and keep being active. You didn't want to just be a passive owner. So when you stabilized your second property, you said lots of turnover problems. You've solved all these things. Like, what happened? When was that? Like,
that was 2017, I think.
2017,
like a year after we bought the first one. So 2017, 2018, I think. We had to turn over 3 tenants. We bumped the rents.
So in 2019, your portfolio was stabilized.
I would say it's stabilized. Well, stabilized to the point of what I understood it to be stabilized at the time. We did some renovations. We increased the rent when the tenants left. And we did certain modifications to the buildings. We had to change the front deck. We did a lot of those early changes. And then that's what was one of our issues. Now we ran out of cash, right? So I had no more cash to buy any more buildings. So we kind of invested a bit into like some online courses to start understanding. I started networking with a lot more people, and I ran into a gentleman.
So that's when you started. That's when you started to educate yourself and try and become a professional real estate investor.
Try to learn from the big ones, right? The ones who are actually doing this full time or who are making a living off of it, right? So I started asking questions, started meeting people at cafes to just pick their brains, try to understand what they're doing, learn about the commercial loans, get into the details of CMHC and all these other things, get into some of these programs, and just learn, right? So that's how I started to understand. I was already following Grant Cardone, one of the bigger ones in the US, and he was already pitching and preaching about all these things. So I started to understand
gasoline on the fire.
Exactly. I started to understand the 10X model and about the commercial loans, and then I dove into more YouTube videos. YouTube Academy is great, always learning from other people. So it was just trying to understand that, and then we ran into other issues, whereas we weren't talking about our deals. We weren't talking, letting people know how good things were and how great we were at finding deals and underwriting. And so it was kind
What's
of
the
when,
problem with that?
well, the problem at that sense is if I want to make it scalable, who's going to invest in someone that they don't know what they're doing, or if they haven't heard of, even if they've had a building for 5 years or 3, 4 buildings for 5 years.
So at this point, you were starting to think of having investors.
Having investors, or at least family friend investors. So the second building we brought in a minority partner. We put up most of the cash. We brought in another partner. The third building I bought was my duplex that I converted to a triplex, and then we did the refi on the first building, and pulled like significant amount of cash out. But now we're at the point where I don't want to invest all this cash. I want to keep a good chunk of it, and like we'll put our money with the investors, but we want to start raising from other friends. So we had some friends who were starting to get into real estate, and we said, well, they were taking the same course as us at the same time. So we said, we found a deal. Do you want to? We'll offer it to you. Do you want to partner up with us? We'll be minority or majority shareholders to making the decisions. We'll run everything by you, but a final say comes to us. And they put up half the money with us, and basically we owned 55% of the building. And that was the one in Longueuil that we did. Like we bought it 3 years ago at this point, 2 years ago, I think. But yeah.
Okay, so you were re-leveraging your past properties, like getting new partners in, so that allowed you to keep going and keep buying.
Exactly. And I was starting to understand the value add of properties. I did it for my duplex, converted to a triplex that appraised for way more. We were slowly understanding the value of optimization. Then we acquired a 16 unit in Vaudreuil. So there was opportunities coming, but again, I was constantly investing money into the deals. So finally, as of this year, we acquired three deals without any of our own cash. So that's like 7 years into the business. So maybe in the last 2 years, we've been chatting about what we've been doing, how we've been going about it, trying to network with other people, showing and helping other people not make the same mistakes we made, helping two youngsters do some cool things, So it was one of those that I had to start speaking about our experiences and what we had under our portfolio and showing our friends. So we're still family friend raises right now. Like we were just raising from people we've known for like 20 years. But we've established the professionalism and the credibility for them to invest the full lump sums. So we're finally getting it to those points where we can stop investing our money in and just start getting investors to
helping investors.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we've realized is that we're starting to turn the next page. So
yeah, so that's a great model, and like if you follow it for 10, 15, 20 years, you could end up with a fairly large portfolio and live off very well of it. And it gets stabilized enough at some point that it becomes like a true passive investment. And
proper
if you have
syndication model, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Syndication model.
Yeah.
But when you get too comfortable, you get the itch of exploring new horizons.
Of course.
So you've mentioned short-term rentals.
So I've always wanted to dabble into vacation rentals. It was more for cash flow purposes because, like we all know, multifamily, people think there's a lot of cash flow in there, but there's not much, especially if you're doing optimizations or you're trying to leverage as much as you can out of the building.
It's self-supporting, but it's not making you live in...
This is sustain a lifestyle, especially if you have partners, right? So realizing that was one of the avenues that I wanted to take. I did always enjoy short-term rentals. I always like traveling, and even though I don't do enough of it right now, I always want to travel the world. So I've realized that there was a market that I've always wanted to get into, but I've never pulled the trigger because I didn't want to be in the hospitality business in the sense of being a customer service person, right? There's a lot of customer service aspect to hospitality and Airbnb that a lot of people overlook, and it's not as truly passive as people really think it is. So over time,
it's not passive at
all. So over time, my girlfriend has always been in the customer service business. She's been a store manager at Massimo Dutti. She's done extremely well for herself, and she's always been good at it. So she's seen what I've done in real estate, and she's kind of getting fed up with a 9 to 5. And I kind of just convinced her this last year, I would say, So why don't you start a business, and I'll help you find the properties, and you and your brother will manage the business itself. You'll be the management side, but I'll find you the deals, and you will either co-host or arbitrage, and then eventually we'll start acquiring our own, and I'll just give you the management. So kind of vertically integrated at this point. And in the last year, she just did her first arbitrage deal in Miami. It's been 3 months. She's getting her superhost status already. Now we have a co-hosting opportunity in St. Henry that's going to be open up. It's going to be open for us in the next month or so. It's already being renovated.
Short term.
Short term, exactly. We're getting the license right now from the city, and we're going to be getting the permit to do so. And then we have a cottage that's coming our way for co-hosting as well. I think up north in the next, hopefully 2-3 months. And I also own a condo in Portugal that we do short-term rentals, but my cousin manages there because he moved from Montreal to Portugal, so he's kind of hands-on there.
Have boots on the ground.
But she will actually be doing the management because we're looking to acquire another property maybe in Italy this year. So she will actually be doing the management of that one.
From
all
remotely?
Yeah. So okay. She manages Miami right now. So she's implemented proper systems, and there's a lot of third-party companies that you can hire for cleaning, maintenance, and all this other stuff. So she's really got the proper systems and SOPs in place to take care of these things. So now we're just trying to look how to scale it at this point.
So you've just made this jump that I'm very jealous of, and it's going remote. And I think the moment you can do real estate investments remotely, well, it just opens up the entire planet almost to investments.
Yeah.
And there's, we grew up in a great place, and it's a mature, stable market, but mature, stable markets don't cash flow like developing markets or areas with large influx of people coming that you find in the United States, or sunny destinations, or there's other markets than ours. And the moment you've earned that badge of like going remote, you start setting up systems. And I'd be curious to know like how that happened. How did that go, going remote, and how do you like it? And if it's something you want to do more of in the future.
So it's definitely changed my perspective of real estate. I used to think we had to buy in our backyard, like what we know, right? Montreal, and maybe an hour away from Montreal. But I've realized, I started following some guys on Instagram who were buying, they're investors from California buying in the Midwest, and he was buying all remotely. He wasn't even going and see the places anymore. He was just sending inspectors, do his due diligence.
So how does that happen? Like you see a listing, you have the pictures, perhaps you'll send someone to go do an initial visit of the property.
You might have someone boots on the ground. You might have a property manager in the area that already maybe has a few other properties, or maybe you didn't buy a property yet, but you reached out to a few local property managers that you're comfortable with, you're happy with. You enjoy their professionalism, and you say, you know what, I have a deal. Can you go check it out? You know the area better than I do. Can you give us your input?
So this is like, it's a brand new area. You haven't invested in it yet, but you have, I don't know, some insights that it might be a good area to invest.
Exactly.
So you'll contact local professionals
to
go and do the visit for you, be your eyes, and send pictures and 3D videos.
Exactly. Videos, pictures, inspection. And at this point, I've done enough inspections that they don't necessarily scare me anymore. Yep. So it's just annoying, like what's the worst case. And
it's kind of nice to get inspection reports on properties where it never snows.
Exactly. But there's other issues, right? Like I own a property in Tampa, and hurricane seasons. Like there's other issues that come with some of these places. Okay. But yes, it doesn't snow, so it's also a different style of building. So they kind of have like cement slabs, no basements. We have basements. We have foundation cracks, as you can tell by these walls. Like
no
there's
cracks here.
No cracks, but I'm saying like there's this depending on the style of foundational walls, if it's going to be blocks or if it's going to be poured cement. So they don't have that. It's just one slab that the whole house sits on. There's no basement.
And it doesn't move when it freezes.
It doesn't move. It doesn't freeze. Like they have a lot of rain warnings, but it's different problems over there that we encounter here. So you just have to kind of be used to and open to the different problems you might incur. But apart from that, it's just, I when I bought the one in Tampa, I flew down to go and meet property managers and contractors myself. So I flew down to just go and meet teams that I wanted to work with, and then I realized the markets and regions that they can manage, and from there I just kept looking in those markets to the point where now I have a decent portfolio. And if I want to expand to another market, I would maybe do the same thing, or just jump on a bunch of Zoom calls till I feel like I have a good fit with someone, and I see the professionalism and their experience, and then I would move forward with them. But yeah, you can do boots on the ground. You could hire local inspectors. A lot of them do videos too. The whole walkthrough, they'll do a video. So there's a lot of technology parts too that help us, like Google Street View. You can kind of see the progression of the house over time. You have the aerial view. You have a Zillow with like 50 pictures per property. You can really get to see a lot about a house without having to personally visit.
And the reason why I said I'm jealous of that move you've made, is that it forces you to create systems, and it forces you to rely on people and to stand on people's shoulders and to trust people and establish like partnerships and relationships. And naturally this will lead to people sitting in their strong chair, in the position where they're the best at, and this allows you to focus on where you're good at. It just forces team building when you're working remotely. And then you can focus on, okay, I'm good at, like, I've earned the trust of many investors. I have a track record. I can leverage that into like bringing more resources to deals. And then you have people on the ground with like full on like management teams and inspectors, and it's just forces you to create a system and stop doing things yourself. And it's probably a step towards like massive scale, I think.
That's what I'm hoping for too, right? It's I no longer want to be the local investor. I want to be an international investor. We have I've changed my goals from wanting to own 2,000 doors to wanting to own one building in 50 different countries. So it's kind of like having different perspectives, like you said, having systems in place, being a bit more patient, because certain projects don't move as fast as they would here, because I'm on top of things in person. And we have our teams and stuff that are already set up, that we can kind of press a bit more. We know when to press, when not to press. Whereas there, we're kind of fully remote. So my property manager gets around with it to set up, let's say, for pictures or to get ready to launch on the platforms. It might take 3 weeks, 4 weeks instead of the original 1 to 2 if I was there, right? So it's being patient and understanding that you might have a bit more holding costs and a bit slower turnaround on things, but knowing that, things are still moving, so things are still progressing, and God forbid if there is the worst case scenario that the property manager kind of does, as we say, shit the bed or do something poorly, I can always just fly in and go and take care of something. Like, it's not like unmanageable, I would say. It's like it's definitely just managing your expectations, and that's the hardest part at this point.
So 50 properties in 50 countries. Like, why this goal?
That's more of the short-term rental aspect that I want. It's kind of the traveling aspect that I want to have. I want to be able to say I can go to any country and have my own place to stay without having to pay for rent, even though I might not always use it. But it's like if I go to Italy and I have a place in Positano or on the Amalfi Coast or in Sicily, be great, and I kind of see it as I like to give back to either friends, family, or other people. So if I have the opportunity to say, hey, go use my place, like, by all means, don't worry about it. And if that's what I can offer someone, then I'd be happy with it. So one of our investors, who actually wants to back us for all these deals, so he wants, I think, our first one to be in Japan. So we might be going to Japan first, and then the second one will be in Italy. So we're looking at that. So we're deciding it might be towards the end of this year that we might be flying out.
That is so cool. So I'm actually very inspired by that goal.
Yeah. So it's one of those. It's kind of a very different goal for real estate, because it's either you do multifamily, you do industrial, you do all these, and I think the experiences in Airbnb are super, like, now it's all about experiences, not just owning a house and renting it.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to get back to the creative side of like the architectural side of things that I enjoy about a house, or some of the
Yeah.
old architecture in Italy, that I
Like
get
you're
to.
pushing the hospitality
Yeah,
like factor
exactly.
in the real estate
Exactly.
investment. And I think like offering unique experiences, like there's an infinity of experiences
Yeah.
you can offer. So it's like there's no limit to what you could do
Yeah.
with this model, and it's actually very interesting.
That's why. So now that I convinced my girlfriend and my brother-in-law to take care of the management side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for it, and I have an investor who's doing extremely well in his career in the marketing side. Jan is actually my friend who's been around for 8 years, and he's finally realizing my potential in this industry. And he says, "Well, I've always wanted to own property, but I never wanted to manage it, so
Mm-hmm.
it's a perfect mesh." So he's looking, and he travels a lot for work, so this is the perfect sequence for him and for us. So that's one of the, I would say, my exciting goals, and I kind of want to talk about the journey, and that's something I'm looking to potentially get into, is the social aspect of showing the day to day behind the scenes, some of the uphill battles, and especially of investing remotely. That, like, you have to understand the region, how things work, and the bylaws, and really figuring out every different place, how you can invest, can you get financing. So those are going to be some cool things that I'm going to be learning myself and being able to share with the world, and show that, like, anyone else could do this. I can do it, you can do it. So it's not I would say prior to the internet it was much tougher, but
Nowadays,
now that we have
it's-
these tools, like,
yeah.
use it.
Well, there's all sorts of ways you can create this sort of club, or
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
and there's an address in every country in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a cool vision.
That's the vision I see, is kind of a membership where you can either pay monthly to just get to travel in any of these places, or there's so many aspects that we can incorporate. So it's
I have to put you in touch with someone.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a cool vision. And it's nice because it's like you could imagine having places that you like, the way you like to travel, the kind of
Yep.
experience you're looking for, and it's guaranteed that somebody else is looking for that same type of experience.
Of course.
And not necessarily the typical hotel in the middle of the capital. Like,
You want to have the view on the hill of the water, or you
mhm.
want to be in a small city, or you want to be in. There's so many opportunities. So it's just interesting to finally be able to kind of go that route where you said I've decided to pull the trigger in the US and Portugal, where it's a bit easier to do remotely, but now we have to figure out how to scale it and really run with it at this point. So that's what I'm excited for towards the end of the year, beginning of next, if we can start doing small steps in those directions.
One of the big changes you've brought in your life in the past years is to leverage social media. You've mentioned it before. It's something you weren't necessarily comfortable with at the first time. You don't like to necessarily talk about how you make money or how much you make money, but you've decided to go against that and to start leveraging it. So how did that journey go? What was the first steps?
So I realized, back to my prior issue, was if people don't know what I'm doing, because I'm not talking about it, how can I either find deals or get people that want to join my journey, or even help people to learn, because I've made a lot of mistakes, and if I can help someone not make those same mistakes, that's what I'm aiming for. So I realized that if I don't speak about it or have an audience to speak to about it, I'll never be able to either fulfill my journey or have new challenges. So I realized that that's one of the things that I have to do. And a lot of our mentors, your mentors, my mentors, have told us that we have to be vocal about these things. And it's not necessarily talking about just the money that comes with it. It's more talking about like some of the pain points and how to overcome some of these things, or that or simple things that you and I now think is like everyone should know this at this point, but we realize that a lot of people don't know about some of these things, or about financing, about this. So it's just being able to share a lot of my knowledge that from things that I've learned, and being able to just meet new people. Like what we're doing, we met it's about a year now. So we met, and it's just having conversations like this that to me are priceless. We get to discover more about each other, help each other out if there are ways that we could help each other out. Even though we're in the same industry, it doesn't necessarily mean we're stepping on each other's toes. So it's one of those things that, like, I've realized that I want to be more of a benefit to society and other people who want to follow this journey than just painting, either not explaining what the whole journey is, or painting a picture that isn't necessarily descriptive of what actually is to come. So I've used social media to always be ahead of the curve, or to keep myself up to date to what's happening on markets, trends, and new opportunities. And now I said, well, I think I have some form of expertise. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I have some information that I can share with maybe people who are just starting. So I'm constantly learning, but maybe there's some that want to start from the beginning. So I could help some of those guys basically start and acquire their first asset, or create their own business in real estate, and so on and so forth.
And what's your advice to somebody who's starting?
So starting, I would say one of the biggest things, if I had to redo over, was don't necessarily focus on either holding the asset or trying to acquire your first property. Maybe go learn from someone who is doing it. And everyone has something they can offer them. You can say like, well, I have nothing to offer that person because they're already doing it. Well, I kind of told two young guys to offer their time to other people who don't have as much time because they're busy. And time is the one thing that people can't get back. So I realized that your time of either being able to help them out, boots on the ground, run some errands, go take some pictures, learn maybe the number crunching part of it, and being able to offer them something more than you think that you don't have. You don't necessarily need to have money. You don't necessarily need to have expertise. You just got to be willing to learn and devote time to learning the craft. So, and that's what I tell people is like, just go learn from someone who's doing it. And if I could have...
And by like you mean go work for somebody who's doing it?
Work? I've given my time for free for a long time for other people. Like how I met my current investor for the ones overseas, Jan, is every time he needed something, whether because he was living in the city and didn't have the car, and he was from BC, but he had to move some furniture or whatever it is, I came and offered him helping hand, run some errands for him, just so I could be close, kind of like a fly on the wall to understand the entrepreneurial side of his business, so I can develop friendship, relationship, and give something that I had no expertise or knowledge in his domain, but I offered him my time, and that was plenty enough to develop the relationship to now where we could potentially start a new business together. So a lot of people are scared to, I guess, invest, or they consider it wasting time for other people, but a lot of opportunities come from giving someone time. So
and shadowing them.
Like if I would have done this 7 years ago with someone else, or maybe took that first down payment and invested in someone else's deal, I might be at a completely different place right now. That's something that I have to live with and realize that was my journey, and that's what led me to who I am today. But if you can learn from someone who's made 10 years of experience and mistakes, you're gonna do what they did in half the time.
Yeah, that totally resonates with me.
So
it's you kind of like their mindset stains you. Is that not the right term? But it's just like you just model them without even knowing it, and you get so many steps ahead by doing that.
Of course, look, there's pros and cons of modeling someone, right? Because their pain points and their I would say their fears or risk tolerances also gets pushed onto you as well. But it's understanding to take the good with the bad, right? Like it's understanding that this is his perspective. Let me take all the good attributes and grow the way I want to grow. But like you said,
from multiple people,
learning from multiple people,
then you get diversity and
just like you said, it's just
and you build your own character.
10 years of experience of their pain points. Like you and I'm at 8 years. You're probably around the same time, 8 to 10 years, I'm assuming. So there's a lot of things we could have went back and say, I could have fixed this. I could have made this better. And now if you get that question asked by a younger person, you'd be like, no, don't do this. Just go straight to this.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I just saved you money, time, and maybe like 5 years of your life.
It's amazing.
So it's one of those things that like, that's the one thing I would suggest for someone starting. Or if you are, let's say you do want to start yourself, or you do have some means of capital, whatever it is, and you do want to own assets, go for it. But don't necessarily, if you're young, don't necessarily think about always having to hold the asset for the 30 years or till retirement, because I think maybe focus on creating a business that creates active income so that you can hold assets after.
So you're saying that it's okay to flip, it's okay to sell and take your money out.
Of course.
Especially when you're starting. You'll probably be able to make more money with this money in your hands doing other projects than if you just let it sit.
Of course.
It'll allow you to like turn the money around more times. So it's practice. You're learning. You're getting to try different things.
You get the repetitions in.
You get the repetitions. And important what you just said, it gets you to, by trying many things, it gets you to find what your business model is.
Exactly.
Because investing is not a business model. Like you want a business to make you money that you can invest. And if investing is what you're good at, make a business out of it.
Exactly.
But you don't want to live off your investments.
The investments it's just an add-on to your current income. So like I tell people, is like, let's say you are going for a cash flowing property. If you want to make cash flow, even if let's say you do find something that's paying you extremely well, but you got to invest 50 to 100K into that so it can make you 15 to 20K at the end of the year, assuming everything goes well. But you're not going to live off that 15 to 20K. So, and even if you have 10 of them, even what you hear on the internet, like people saying, oh yeah, I have 10 cash flowing properties, but are they actually making that exact return? There's a lot of like things that only being in the business do you realize that's not all true. So if you can do more repetitions, flipping the properties or creating a proper business, whether it's a management company, like you guys know so well and other people know so well, management companies, yes, there's a lot of headaches that come with it, but you also get off-market deals because deals come to you now. You get active income regardless if the property is performing well or not. You're still getting paid. So there's a lot of things that benefit that you can create a lot of businesses around real estate, as simple as real estate photography. I know someone who's doing real estate photography and they're doing extremely well. So you could be in the industry learning how to invest, but creating the business around it so that you can buy more assets in the future to hold for the wealth and all that stuff. So it's just a misconception that a lot of people have that I also felt trapped to. And
short-term rentals, like but having a cash flowing business inside of the industry is something you would have done differently.
I would have done 100% differently. Yeah. And there's plenty of opportunities, like a simple one. If you want to get into low down payments and easy entry, is like value add is taking a duplex and converting it into a triplex. There's a bunch of them in Montreal or Quebec, or even in the States. Like I was looking in Buffalo, a lot of them have attics. You can do simple, just third unit, and that increases the value of the property by 50, 100, 200K sometimes. So you could do simple value add flips anywhere. And then that makes you a crazy profit. And people are saying like, yeah, but you got to pay taxes on it. People pay taxes because they're making money.
That's it.
So
you'd be happy to pay taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Lots of taxes.
Lots of taxes. Worry about the taxes later. Make some money first.
Yeah. And any like counter advice? Like something you shouldn't do? You wouldn't recommend?
You shouldn't do. I think, like I said, unless you're making, maybe you have a good 9-to-5 job and you're just looking to invest passively. But the early stages, if you want to make a living out of real estate.
And it doesn't have to be about real estate. It can be about entrepreneurship
okay.
in general also.
I would think counterintuitive. Like you're saying, like in what sense? So just clarify it, like against the grain, or like in a sense of like things you wouldn't do or that you did and you would continue doing?
Take it however you want.
That's a good question. I'd say the biggest thing, there's two models that I kind of live my life by is that I know I don't know anything. It's one of the biggest things that like I'm always learning and seeking new information. That's kind of what led me to my new experiences in the U.S. market and abroad. If not, I would still be investing or only focused in Quebec. So I'm always seeking new information and trying to learn from other people. And the second is don't be scared to fail. Like I know a lot of people say it is very repetitive, but the only reason why I'm here today with you is because I've made mistakes. Because I don't know anyone who started a business who hasn't made a mistake. And I'm not afraid to make more mistakes. I'm trying to avoid them. But with mistakes comes knowledge and wisdom, and then you avoid them for future problems. So it's
So not to be inactive, just to avoid mistakes.
it's not to be inactive, and it's kind of it goes against what we've been taught in school, because you get penalized for making mistakes in school. On your exam, you don't get 100%. You can fail because you made too many mistakes. But too many mistakes leads to refining of a product, right? Like this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. Okay, let's change these things into this. It's what led me to what I am today. It's what led your business to what you are today. And there's nothing that's perfect in life. There's always going to be changing things, whether it's in markets, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your family. There's always something changing. So there's always going to be new hurdles. And if you don't want these headaches, that's fine. I'm not saying everyone wants these, but I think if you can be resilient to failure, and not failure in a sense like I lost everything, you're taking calculated risks, but you're comfortable with the sense that there is a chance that something could go wrong. And I think that's the biggest thing that stuck with me for the longest time, is that I'm not scared to be told no and to make mistakes. Everyone told me I wouldn't be investing in the States this year, and these are family friends, and I bought 3 properties in 3 months, so we'll see what happens.
And what do you think is like the greatest opportunity for younger, motivated people, in their 20s, getting out of school, getting out of university, with the entrepreneurial itch inside of them? Like, what do you think? Where is the greatest opportunity?
Greatest opportunity, I think, would have to be in technologies. There's still a lot of untapped. If you're looking at AI, if you're looking at there's a lot of industries that are old. Real estate's an old industry. There's a lot of technologies that haven't been introduced to real estate yet. Like I think there's a lot of improvement there that we can all work on, right? I think AI is one of those things that I'm not trying to push it because it's a new trend, but it's still fairly young, fairly recent. There's still applications that could be developed with it. And I'm not saying like create an application that solves problems for everything. Try and go super niche. Try and fix one little aspect of one little industry. It might lead to a bigger business. A lot of people are focused on like, oh, what's the exit? How do I sell this business? Or I want it to be worth $1 billion in like 10 years. It doesn't necessarily mean because you're so niche, it won't be worth X multiple. It just means you probably have to expand on it. But at least you're solving a problem. Solve that first problem and then grow to the rest. But I think that's technologies is still one of the leaders in my opinion. There's also like you could buy a boring business and start boring business. I love boring businesses. Like if you think about the what is it called? The trades. There's less and less people going into trades. In 5 to 10 years, if you're a young electrician or a plumber, you start your own business, there's a lot of money to be made there. So it just depends on what you like and what you enjoy and what industries you want to kind of focus on. But I think there's a lot of opportunity in every aspect. You just got to find it. And the only way to find those things out is by being in the industries and finding the pain points. So search for the pain points.
Do you see any threats?
Threats with?
For the same people, those younger generations that want to get into business, but
I think there's less threats with every year that goes by, yeah, there's more competition, there's more businesses being opened, but you have access to unlimited resources. Like there's always something that can be added on. Like 5 years ago, AI wasn't there. I wish I had AI in my university. I would write all my papers that way. It would have been so much easier for me, right? So there's so many different tools that can lead you to a new business model that are always being incorporated on a per month or per week basis. There's always something new coming to the market. So yes, it's harder and harder to break out, but that like it's hard to say because I've seen great businesses or great services fail because of marketing or because of like being in front of the right people, logistics or whatever it is. But it doesn't necessarily mean it was bad. It just means that maybe it just needs a different approach to it or something else. And there's also older businesses that are kind of like they're not being revamped, so they're kind of dying out. So it might be an opportunity to take over an older business that already has a street credit or whatever it is and expand it and grow it to what it can be. So I think there's plenty of opportunity for old businesses to be taken over. So you don't necessarily have to start a product or start a service that's brand spanking new. Majority of the time, it's a service or a product that's just expanded on from an existing product.
Yeah, there's not a very strong bench, I hear, especially in Quebec, for businesses that are like with older owners that are retiring. Like I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities.
I think to me, that's a huge avenue that people should take advantage of. It's
in French, we call it entrepreneurial.
That's it. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
nothing wrong at all.
You can grow it into something else if it's already serving people's needs.
What's better than a business that's already been proven and track record is there? Now, can you make it better
and apply technology to it?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's a great avenue for people.
Exciting.
Yeah.
I love books. Any books that you recommend or gift a lot, or that has inspired you?
So I'm not going to say the typical rich dad, poor dad. Everyone says that.
We do hear a lot about it. It was
the
podcast,
first one that everyone listens
to. But it just shows how important of a book it is.
How much it influenced all of us, right? Crazy. So I kind of enjoyed a lot of the marketing books from like Gary Vee, like Jab, Jab, Punch.
Okay.
There's a few of also Grant Cardone's book that were okay. A bit like too in your face, but there's a bit of value in every book.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I'm reading Pace Morby's Creative Finance book.
Okay.
I'm enjoying that just to understand a bit more of the creative side of the US market. I like a lot of that personal development books. I'm not into the kind of the sci-fi and like storytelling, but that's just me.
No, you're more into
nonfiction, like more self-improvement.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for self-improvement, I would actually tell you to maybe read some of Alex Hormozi's books. I haven't read them yet, but I've been hearing great things about them.
Because you do listen to a lot of content.
Online. from online sources.
Which is the new books.
Right, or podcasts while I'm driving, right? Yeah. So I want to read
those. Is there a podcast you recommend?
They're all old podcasts, right? So like I would say Vision Dev for sure. That's gotta be it. But there's a lot of old podcasts that, like, people have heard, like Gary Vee's podcast. Alex Hormozi's podcast is pretty good too. I like Bigger Pockets for the US market that I was learning a lot from. Maybe
about real estate, right?
About real estate for there, but for entrepreneurial, I would say there's Andy Frisella, which is one that it's called the MFCEO, I think it's called. So it stands for the cursive words, like the very the non-proper terminology, but he's very straightforward, kind of your typical American dream guy. Talks about his story, how he started his own supplement store and then started in the supplement industry. So it's really, really cool to see
it's always nice to have people like that, like pushing us towards our dream. Like David Goggins says, like we usually use only 40% of what's in the tank, right?
Yeah.
And it's great to go to see what's out there, like what we can do and
how far you could push yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's another form of exploration and adventure and pushing yourself.
Yeah. Actually, there's a good book with David Goggins before David Goggins was popular. It's Jesse Itzler?
Nope.
So Jesse Itzler is the founder of Marquise Jets. He also married to the the lady who created Spanx.
Okay.
So they're very successful entrepreneurs. So Jesse Itzler wrote a book. How I forget the title, but it's something along the lines with I house the a marine at my house to show him training, and it was David Goggins. He never released his name, but so he did a marathon. David Goggins. It was a marathon with like 4 people. Jesse Itzler ran it, and then they all like do their part for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And David Goggins actually ran the 24 hours alone and broke his foot and everything. So he said, this guy is at another level. So he when the marathon ended, he said, I need to fly you out so you can train me with this mindset and everything. So it's a story about how he brought him into his home for like 90 days. And David Goggins kind of like brainwashed him. And it's a really, really cool story.
He tells about it in one of his books.
Yeah. So he never drops his name. So when David Goggins came out, I already knew who this man was. And it, like the story I read was like spitting image of what he was. So it's a cool read. And Jesse Itzler he's got 2 books that are really good, and there's similar about his entrepreneurial journey and everything. And he likes to run a lot, so it talks about his training journey too.
We'll share it in the description.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. So it's if you could, I would tell you to read it. It's a nice story about his journey with David Goggins.
Anything else you want to share with our audience?
I think I already said enough. No, but
anything you we could do for you, like anything you'd like to showcase today?
If you want to follow me on Instagram, or I'm starting to do some social media content in the next couple months. I'm in the process of planning how I want to showcase certain things and explain.
Your Instagram is at Seb Cantali, so SEBCANTALI.
Yes, exactly. And that's where I'm actually most active. If you do want to message me on Instagram, whatever it is, you can always ping me there. I will be on TikTok eventually. I don't know if it's going to be sooner than later, but it's going to be that style. And then eventually I'd like to get into long form. But yeah, I'm going to be doing that. I've also, if anyone, I'm always looking to meet new people. Anyone interested about talking about the American market or investing abroad, or just want to know about real estate, I'd love to grab coffees. As many people know, I'm a coffee enthusiast. So we can go for a coffee, or we could jump on a Zoom call. I'd love to chat with new people, see what they're up to, what they're doing. It's just a great way to network. So if anyone wants to reach out to me on Instagram, or give my phone number, I guess.
I can share whatever you want to share.
So I'll give my phone number. So
we'll put
you
it
can
in
also
the
text me or email me. So email is scantali, so SCANTALI 91@gmail.com. Or you could just text me or call me at 514-944-4389.
Love it. Love that. Sounds so old school.
So old school. The old 514 numbers, you know?
Yeah.
No one's a 438 out of us.
Up with a jingle.
So yeah, so if you want to reach out to me and just grab a coffee or chat, I'd love to. So that's what it is.
But if you had this like virtual like billboard that the whole planet could see, you know, on like the international highway, what would you put on it?
That is very loose. That's a very artsy question. I like it. I don't want to say YOLO. I hate that fucking saying. Sorry for my language. I hate that saying, but it's more of a, don't be afraid to be the person you envision yourself to be. So I think it's go out and try.
Don't let your fear drive you.
And it doesn't have to be entrepreneurial. It doesn't have to be anything. It's just like, if you want to try something new, if you want to leave everything behind and just backpack, go for it. Like, don't be scared to just take a break from what your narrative is, because we're all kind of like bottlenecked into the same confines. Like, go to school, go to work, start your family. But if you don't want to do that, don't listen to what everyone else is telling you to do. I have a saying on my phone. So I have this, you won't be able to see it, but it says FYI. So everyone knows FYI is for your information. For me, it's follow your instincts. So
love it.
It's a different perspective on everyone. There's always going to be voices in your head. There's always going to be people telling you from their experiences or what to do and so on and so forth. Just go do you. Like, you're going to figure out what you like and what you don't like. But if you don't experience it, you'll never know.
What's it like to follow your instincts? Like, what do you feel? It's
just, everyone has a gut feeling about things, right? When you're looking at a property, when you're thinking about a new venture or a new business, you have a gut feeling. Only you have that gut feeling. No one else is going to have the same gut feeling as you. Everyone has their own experiences and their own circumstances that they live their life and you live yours. You can always ask for other people's opinions, but no one's ever going to fully understand what you are living today. So follow that instinct. Follow that. If this is what you're attracted to, if this is what you keep going back to, go for it. Worst case, you have to restart.
Love it.
So like,
Thanks, man.
anytime.